Sunrise in the Outer Banks is usually a peaceful thing. Peach gold light spilling across the dunes, the air cool enough to forgive yesterday's heat. But when I woke the next morning, peace felt like a luxury item the house had decided we didn't deserve. Evan was still asleep beside me, curled on the too-thin mattress like a man trying to make himself smaller. The dehumidifier hummed against the concrete floor, filling the room with a cold metallic scent. I eased out of bed, grabbed my phone, and stared again at the 2 messages from the unknown number. Leave quietly. Don't make this worse. The audacity still stunned me. Someone wanted me gone so badly they were willing to push me out before sunrise. But the house Wi-Fi logs, they were the key. I'd confirmed the network portal existed last night. Now I needed proof. I padded upstairs. The kitchen was already alive with early activity. Lydia stood at the stove frying bacon, humming an off-key but cheerful tune. Evan's cousins, Mara and Colin, sat at the island scrolling their phones and sipping orange juice from mismatched glasses. The moment I walked in, Mara's eyes flicked up, curious, wary. Colin gave a polite nod. But Mark was the one who froze. He stood by the coffee maker, mug in hand, wearing that smirk he used as armor. A mug I recognized, actually, my chipped white mug from home, the one I brought because beach rentals never had enough cups. He'd taken it for himself. "Morning," he said, voice light. "Sleep well." I set my phone down on the counter, screen down, heart steadying into something calmer than anger. "Fine. You?" "Great. It's a good day," he replied, raising the mug in a mock toast. It was a performance. And performances could crack. I poured myself a glass of water and asked, "Anyone else stay up late last night?" He stiffened, not enough for others to notice but enough for me. "Why?" he asked casually, way too casually. "Just curious." I shrugged. Someone texted me from an unlisted number. Mark took a slow sip from my chipped mug, eyes shifting away for a beat too long. Darla drifted in, hair piled high in a messy bun. Perfume too floral for morning. She slid next to her husband and whispered something that made him straighten. Lydia flipped bacon with a little too much enthusiasm and asked over her shoulder, "Text? From whom?" "Not sure," I said lightly. "But the Wi-Fi logs might tell me." Silence expanded through the room like a sudden storm front. Mark gave a short laugh. "Wi-Fi logs? This isn't a spy movie. It's a rental property," I replied. "Every device signs in with the name. Check-in requirement." Darla blinked quickly. "Is it? I didn't notice." "Oh really?" Mara said, perking up. I did. Had to type my name twice. It kept autocorrecting. Our eyes met. For the first time this trip, someone in the family wasn't pretending ignorance. I continued gently, "I'm going to check the log today. Should clear things up." Mark set the mug down too hard. The clink echoed. "It's probably spam," he said. "You overthink things." "Maybe," I said. But the messages were specific. "What messages?" Evan's voice floated in from the hallway as he entered, hair tousled but expression alert. "What's going on?" Before I could speak, Lydia jumped in. "There was a text. Just confusion, I'm sure." Mark cut in. "Nothing important. She's being paranoid." I held Evan's gaze. "It said I should leave quietly this morning." The room sucked in a breath. Evan blinked as if he misheard. "Leave quietly? Who would?" Mark burst out with practiced indignation. "Oh come on, nobody here would say that. Maybe someone local? Scammers." But the veneer was cracking. His eyes were too sharp. His voice too fast. His shoulders too tense. And then something small but crucial clicked into place. In the dim light last night when I'd gone upstairs, I'd heard whispering from the hall, Mark's voice low and urgent saying, "She'll be gone by morning." He thought I hadn't heard. Before the tension could snap, Lydia stepped between us, spatula still in hand. "Everyone sit. Eat. This is silliness." But Mara wasn't buying it. What exactly did the text say? Sunrise in the Outer Banks is usually a peaceful thing. Peach gold light spilling across the dunes, the air cool enough to forgive yesterday's heat. But when I woke the next morning, peace felt like a luxury item the house had decided we didn't deserve. Evan was still asleep beside me, curled on the too-thin mattress like a man trying to make himself smaller. The dehumidifier hummed against the concrete floor, filling the room with a cold metallic scent. I eased out of bed, grabbed my phone, and stared again at the 2 messages from the unknown number. Leave quietly. Don't make this worse. The audacity still stunned me. Someone wanted me gone so badly they were willing to push me out before sunrise. But the house Wi-Fi logs, they were the key. I'd confirmed the network portal existed last night. Now I needed proof. I padded upstairs. The kitchen was already alive with early activity. Lydia stood at the stove frying bacon, humming an off-key but cheerful tune. Evan's cousins, Mara and Colin, sat at the island scrolling their phones and sipping orange juice from mismatched glasses. The moment I walked in, Mara's eyes flicked up, curious, wary. Colin gave a polite nod. But Mark was the one who froze. He stood by the coffee maker, mug in hand, wearing that smirk he used as armor. A mug I recognized, actually, my chipped white mug from home, the one I brought because beach rentals never had enough cups. He'd taken it for himself. "Morning," he said, voice light. "Sleep well." I set my phone down on the counter, screen down, heart steadying into something calmer than anger. "Fine. You?" "Great. It's a good day," he replied, raising the mug in a mock toast. It was a performance. And performances could crack. I poured myself a glass of water and asked, "Anyone else stay up late last night?" He stiffened, not enough for others to notice, but enough for me. "Why?" he asked casually, way too casually. "Just curious." I shrugged. Someone texted me from an unlisted number. Mark took a slow sip from my chipped mug, eyes shifting away for a beat too long. Darla drifted in, hair piled high in a messy bun. Perfume too floral for morning. She slid next to her husband and whispered something that made him straighten. Lydia flipped bacon with a little too much enthusiasm and asked over her shoulder, "Text? From whom?" "Not sure," I said lightly. "But the Wi-Fi logs might tell me." Silence expanded through the room like a sudden storm front. Mark gave a short laugh. "Wi-Fi logs? This isn't a spy movie." "It's a rental property," I replied. "Every device signs in with the name. Check-in requirement." Darla blinked quickly. "Is it? I didn't notice." "Oh really?" Mara said, perking up. I did. Had to type my name twice. It kept autocorrecting. Our eyes met. For the first time this trip, someone in the family wasn't pretending ignorance. I continued gently, "I'm going to check the log today. Should clear things up." Mark set the mug down too hard. The clink echoed. "It's probably spam," he said. "You overthink things." "Maybe," I said. But the messages were specific. "What messages?" Evan's voice floated in from the hallway as he entered, hair tousled but expression alert. "What's going on?" Before I could speak, Lydia jumped in. "There was a text. Just confusion, I'm sure." Mark cut in. "Nothing important. She's being paranoid." I held Evan's gaze. "It said I should leave quietly this morning." The room sucked in a breath. Evan blinked as if he misheard. "Leave quietly? Who would?" Mark burst out with practiced indignation. "Oh come on, nobody here would say that. Maybe someone local? Scammers." But the veneer was cracking. His eyes were too sharp. His voice too fast. His shoulders too tense. And then something small but crucial clicked into place. In the dim light last night, when I'd gone upstairs, I'd heard whispering from the hall, Mark's voice, low and urgent, saying, "She'll be gone by morning." He thought I hadn't heard. Before the tension could snap, Lydia stepped between us, spatula still in hand. "Everyone sit. Eat. This is silliness." But Mara wasn't buying it. What exactly did the text say? I lifted my phone and read it out loud. It landed like a dropped anchor. A cold, sinking heaviness flooded the kitchen. No one looked at me, everyone looked at Mark. He shrugged, palms up, laughed brittle. "Seriously? You think I sent that? Did you?" Evan asked. Mark's wide-eyed innocence was too theatrical. "Why would I? Why would anyone want her gone?" That was the moment Darla flinched, barely a tremor of the mouth. "Ask your wife," I said quietly. Darla stepped back. "Excuse me. You told me yesterday that the nicer rooms were for people who would appreciate them more. And someone moved my things before we even arrived. Someone wanted me uncomfortable." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Mark started pacing. This is ridiculous. You're making drama out of nothing. But the room wasn't with him anymore. Lydia lowered her spatula. Mark, did you send that message? His jaw tightened. It doesn't matter, he muttered. Oh, it matters, Evan said. If you're trying to push my wife out of a family vacation, it matters. Mark shook his head fiercely. Don't twist things. I stepped forward, holding the router portal open on my phone. I checked it earlier that morning before anyone was awake. Here, I said softly, lifting the screen. At 12:47 a.m., one device connected to the network using the name assigned during check-in. The number matches the one that texted me. The room collectively inhaled. What device? Mara asked. I tapped the entry. Mark's phone. It appeared clearly. Mark's iPhone connected 12:47 a.m. active. His face drained of color. That's not possible, he stammered. Someone spoofed it. Darla leaned away from him, eyes narrowing. Even she didn't believe that. Just own it, I said quietly. No drama. No yelling. Just tell the truth. Mark's gaze darted from me to Evan to his mother. Something in him quivered, panic or pride, I couldn't tell. Then his voice dropped. Fine. Yes. I sent it. Gasps. Real unscripted ones. Evan's hand curled into a fist at his side. Why would you do that to her? Mark didn't answer immediately. He rubbed his forehead, muttered something, then finally said, Because we were supposed to have a quiet vacation. No tension. No commentary. Commentary. I repeated. On what? On everything, he snapped. You, your opinions, your habits. Mark, Lydia hissed. No, he said sharply. She judges everything. She makes you question everything. She makes my wife uncomfortable. She makes my mother nervous. I've barely said a word this trip, I said. That's exactly it, he said. It's the silent judgment. I stared at him, stunned by how absurdly he'd rewritten reality. So you wanted me gone? He didn't reply, which was reply enough. Evan spoke with quiet fury. You tried to evict my wife from our family vacation. With a secret text. In the middle of the night. Mark swallowed hard but didn't deny it. Darla stepped away from him fully now. That's cruel. He glared at her. You said. I didn't say send her away, she snapped. I just said I felt pressured around her sometimes. And you weaponized that, I said softly. Evan ran a hand through his hair, exhaling shakily. We're not leaving. Not quietly, not loudly, not at all. But you owe my wife an apology. Mark stared at the floor, jaw flexing. He didn't say a word. Not yet. But silence was its own confession. The aftermath of the breakfast confrontation didn't dissipate. It thickened. By noon the house felt wrapped in damp silence, like a storm waiting for its cue. Beach towels hung untouched on balcony railings. The cousins abandoned their boogie boards. Even the gulls outside seemed quieter, circling in lazy, uneasy loops. Lydia finally broke the stillness. We need a family discussion, she declared, folding her arms with the authority of someone who'd been mediating sibling fights since the 70s. This has gone too far. Too far. As if it had walked there on its own. Mark had retreated to the top-floor bedroom, the one with the ocean-facing deck he'd claimed for himself and Darla. She stood in the hallway now, chewing the corner of her thumbnail, looking less villainous and more like someone who'd thought she was playing along with pettiness only to realize she'd been participating in cruelty. Evan squeezed my hand as we followed the others to the living room. I'm with you, he said simply. Always. Always. The living room had oversized wicker furniture and faded blue cushions that squeaked when you shifted your weight. The air smelled faintly of sunscreen and the grocery store rotisserie chicken we'd eaten on night one. Mara and Colin perched on the love seat. Lydia sat in the rocking chair. Darla sank onto the sofa's edge. Evan and I took the remaining seats. We waited. A full minute passed. Finally, footsteps creaked down the stairs and Mark appeared. Face stiff and eyes glassy with a poorly concealed cocktail of anger and embarrassment. He didn't sit. He stood near the sliding door like a witness about to deliver rehearsed testimony. Lydia cleared her throat. Mark, we need to address this properly. He scoffed. I apologized. You muttered fine and walked away, Mara said. That's not an apology. It's all you're getting, he snapped. Why send her that message at all? Colin asked. Seriously, man. It was harsh. Mark's jaw worked as if grinding a stone. I already explained. She's judgmental. I haven't judged anything, I said calmly. That's your way, he shot back. Quiet judgment. It's worse than saying something. I blinked slowly, letting the absurdity float between us. Evan leaned forward, elbows on knees. Even if you believe that, why not talk to me? Or her? Why sneak around and text her at midnight? It wasn't sneaking, Mark muttered. It was avoiding conflict. Mara barked out a laugh. By creating conflict? Logic is free, Mark. Try it. Before he could respond, Lydia raised a hand. Let's focus. We're resolving, not attacking. But the damage had shape now. It had weight. And then it gained form. Because while everyone argued, something glinted near the edge of the entertainment console, half hidden behind a shell-themed coaster stack. A brass key. Small, tarnished, the sort of key that didn't belong to a modern beach rental with digital locks. I stepped toward it out of instinct, almost without thinking, and as I picked it up, a familiar sensation tingled through my fingers. I know this key, I murmured. Evan looked over. What is it? It's... I hesitated, then turned it in my hand. From our storage bench at home. The one in our foyer. The lock that sticks sometimes. Everyone frowned. Darla leaned in. Why would that be here? But I already had a sinking suspicion. Someone had been in our house before the trip. My gaze slid almost involuntarily toward Mark. His reaction was instantaneous, too fast, too sharp, a flicker of panic before he forced it down. Don't look at me, he said. No one said your name, Mara observed. Why would you assume you're being accused? Evan asked quietly. Mark's throat bobbed. I turned the key over again. There was a tiny chip on one side. A distinct crescent mark made 2 years ago when Evan dropped it on our porch step. It was unmistakable. How did this get here? I asked. Darla looked at Mark. Did you go to their place before the trip? He glared at her. Of course not. I waited. Counted silently. No, 3. I dropped off the cooler, he added too quickly. Remember? You asked me to. Evan frowned. We didn't ask you to drop off anything. Yes, you did, he insisted. You asked if I could grab the cooler from your garage because we were short on space. That never happened, Evan said. Suddenly Darla rounded on him. Mark, why do you have their house key? I don't, he shouted. It's clearly theirs, she said. Why would a key from their storage bench be in your pocket? She jumped ahead in interpretation, but her instinct wasn't wrong. Mark sputtered. It must have fallen. From where? Colin asked. Your imagination? Lydia set down her mug with a sharp clack. Mark, did you let yourself into their home? The room held its breath. Mark looked at me, at Evan, at the key, at the floor. His face tightened until it resembled a clenched fist. I borrowed the cooler, he said finally. Which we've established you didn't. Evan reminded him coldly. Fine, Mark snapped. I needed to check something. My stomach went icy. Check what? He exhaled hard, hands balling at his sides. Darla found receipts in her email from months back. She thought you were lying about that thing you bought. She said it seemed like you were buying expensive stuff behind everyone's back. What thing? I asked. Mark gestured vaguely. That fancy cake stand or whatever. My jaw dropped. The $45 ceramic one I bought on clearance last year? It looked expensive, he shouted. So you what? Decided to break into our house. Evan's voice was steel now, low and lethal. I wasn't breaking in, Mark insisted. You gave me the code once. For emergencies, Evan reminded him. Not so you could snoop through our things because of some conspiracy about a cake stand. Mark's face blotched red. I wanted to see if she was hiding other stuff. Darla thought. Darla cut him off sharply. I didn't ask you to break into their home, Mark. I said I wondered if she bought it for show. I didn't tell you to go play detective. You implied it, he hissed. No, she said, voice shaking. You assumed it. The room felt heavy with a new kind of clarity. Not only had he schemed to push me out of the vacation, He'd been creeping through our belongings looking for what? Evidence of imaginary crimes? Lydia covered her mouth. Mark, this is beyond inappropriate. He paced, ran his hands through his hair, muttered curses under his breath. I was trying to protect the family. She's been existing, Mara suggested. Breathing? Using a cake stand. It wasn't about the stand, he exploded. Then what was it? I asked softly. What have I actually done to you? He stopped, stared at me, and for the first time I saw something raw behind his irritation. Resentment. Old, thick, irrational resentment. You make Evan different, he said. Since he married you, he doesn't let things slide. He stands up to me. He questions things. You changed the balance. Ah, there it was. The root. I wasn't the threat. Control was. Evan's jaw flexed. I'm not your dependent. Or your underling. I'm your brother. You were easier before, Mark whispered. That's not my problem, I said. And it's not my burden. The brass key hung between my fingers, quiet, undeniable proof of his intrusion. Lydia stood. Mark, you will apologize properly. To both of them. And you will explain yourself without excuses. No, I said gently. Everyone turned to me. I don't want an apology right now, I continued. I want the truth first. The whole truth. Because finding this key tells me something else, something I haven't said yet. They waited. The storage bench where this key belongs? I said slowly. It's where we keep our home paperwork, including the rental agreement for our house. Mark blinked in confusion. So, I said, stepping closer. A clause in that agreement was updated last year. A clause you couldn't know about unless you'd been digging through our things. His eyes widened, not in innocence but in recognition. What clause? Evan asked. I looked at him. At the time it didn't matter. But now? It matters a lot. Because the clause, which we'd initialed innocently, had recently been activated by our landlord. And Mark, digging through our documents, might have known before we did. If the air had been tense before, it became thick enough now to press against my skin. The brass key felt heavier in my palm, as if carrying the weight of what I was about to say. Everyone watched me. Even the ocean outside seemed to hush, the waves receding in a slow inhale. Evan leaned forward. What clause? I swallowed. The renewal clause. The one the landlord updated last October. He blinked. We initialed that. I remember something about a background check. There were 2 updates, I said. One about background checks. Another that seemed small at the time, so small we barely noticed. Mara lifted an eyebrow. What was it? A notice requirement, I said. Anyone requesting access to our property, repairs, inspections, even appraisals, must be scheduled with at least 48 hours written notice. No exceptions. Not even family. Silence. Then Colin murmured. That's standard, isn't it? Yes, I said. But the timing isn't. Everyone turned to Mark. His face drained. What did you do? Evan asked quietly. I didn't do anything, Mark said, but he said it too fast, too tight. I continued. Our landlord emailed 2 weeks ago. They wanted to schedule a routine inspection for the week after we get back. We confirmed the date. And? Lydia asked. And, I said slowly, the inspection was requested because the property management flagged a duplicate inquiry submitted under Evan's name. A request asking for a pre-inspection for an early move-out. Evan jerked upright. What? I didn't submit anything, I said. And neither did you. Mark started pacing again. It must have been an error. No, I said gently. It wasn't. Because whoever submitted it attached a photo of our lease signature page. Darla's mouth fell open. Mark, no. He turned on her. I didn't. Yes, you did, I said. The key tells me you were digging through our paperwork. The time-stamped Wi-Fi log tells me you were panicking last night. And the midnight text tells me you wanted me out of here before we started putting the pieces together. Evan breathed in sharply. Why would you want us to move out early? Mark's lips pressed into a thin line. He stared out the window as if the dunes could offer him an escape. Because what? Evan repeated. Mark exhaled a shaky breath. Because your landlord is also my landlord. We stared. He swallowed. The duplex next to yours? The one I rent? He owns that too. And he told me well implied that your spot might be opening soon. He said the earliest request gets priority. And he wiped a hand across his forehead. I wanted your unit. Shock rippled through the room. Our unit. Evan said slowly. You wanted to take over our home? It's bigger, Mark snapped. Has a yard. Better light. You know it's nicer. You tried to get us out. My voice came out quieter than I expected. By forcing us to move early? No, not forcing. Just nudging. If you left on your own, I'd get first pick. The inspection was already happening. I just tried to align things. By submitting a fake move-out request? Evan's voice shook with disbelief. It wasn't fake, Mark muttered. It was just early. So you wanted us to spend our vacation stressing over housing? I asked. He looked at me with something that almost resembled guilt, but only almost. I figured you'd take the hint and start planning. You two always overthink. I thought you'd decide it was time. Mara shook her head. This is next-level manipulative. Colin let out a low whistle. Man, you really tried to evict them from their own lives. Darla's voice rose, trembling. You didn't tell me you were doing that. He rounded on her. Because you panic. You worry about everything. You'd have made it a big deal. It is a big deal, she fired back. You broke into their house. It wasn't breaking in, he snapped. They gave me the code once. For emergencies, Evan growled. You don't get to define emergency. Mark shouted. Actually, I said softly, the lease clause does. And guess what? Unauthorized entry by any non-resident automatically triggers a tenant rights violation. He spun toward me. Are you threatening to report me? No, I replied. I'm stating what happened. But his eyes had gone wild. You want me ruined? Is that it? I want accountability, I said. And the truth. Which we have now. He laughed bitterly. Congrats, you got your victory. No, Evan said quietly. Victory would be you treating my wife with respect. Victory would be an honest relationship between brothers. That ship sailed, Mark muttered. Lydia stood slowly. Mark. Sit. He didn't. He looked like a child refusing to obey one more time. Sit, she repeated. He sat. Lydia took a breath. You will not sabotage your brother's home. You will not enter their property without permission. You will not send manipulation disguised as kindness. And you will not blame her for your own actions. Mark glared at the carpet. You will call the landlord today, she continued, and retract whatever inquiry you submitted. It's Saturday, he mumbled. Monday then, she corrected. First thing. Evan looked at me. Are you okay? I nodded, but something tugged at me. An unfinished thread. Mark, I said. Why the midnight text? You didn't need me gone to chase the lease. Why try to make me leave the house today? He hesitated, and then his eyes flickered just once, toward the hallway leading to the lower level where we were staying. Because, he said in a small, almost embarrassed voice, you were going to find something. What? Evan asked. Mark pressed his lips together. Then Darla spoke for him, horror dawning across her face. Mark, please don't tell me you planted something. My pulse spiked. Everyone turned toward him. He didn't deny it. Mark, Evan said, voice dangerously calm. What did you put in our room? Mark stood quickly, as if movement might somehow hide his guilt. It wasn't dangerous. It was just insurance. What did you put there? Evan's tone was low enough to chill the room. Mark ran a hand through his hair. Something to make you think the landlord needed access sooner. I figured if you believed the place wasn't safe, you'd. What did you put there? Evan thundered. Mark flinched. A notice. A printed notice. I made it look official. That's all. I stared at him. So you forged an eviction warning? Not eviction, he insisted. Just early inspection. I gasped softly, because suddenly the memory clicked. The dehumidifier in our downstairs room had been swiveling oddly, almost as if bumped, and the little wicker trash basket had been out of place. He'd been in our room last night, trying to plant another push. You were going to pretend the landlord required earlier access, I said quietly. He didn't look up. Lydia covered her face. Mark, this is shameful. But something in his silence unsettled me, because he still hadn't explained one more thing. Why the notice was placed near our bags, not on the door, as if he wasn't finished with whatever he intended to stage. Before I could speak again, Mara asked, "Where exactly did you put this notice?" Mark blinked. On the nightstand. My blood ran cold, because I'd looked at that nightstand yesterday, and there had been no paper, which meant he intended to put it there today. And the only reason he hadn't was because I'd caught him with the text. The house was too still when the group discussion adjourned. No one rushed to the beach. No one opened a board game or grabbed a book. Conversations became whispers, then evaporated. The only sound was the persistent hum of the dehumidifier downstairs, like a mechanical heartbeat waiting for someone to acknowledge it. Evan turned to me. "We're checking the room." I nodded. I wanted clarity, needed it, but dread twisted inside me like a knot of wet rope. If Mark had already admitted to forging a notice, what else might he have staged? We descended the narrow flight of stairs, the air cooling with each step. The smell of concrete and faint mildew filled the space, grounding me in reality. Evan flicked on the light. Our makeshift room looked the same at first glance. The thin mattress toppers, our suitcase half unzipped, the dehumidifier glowing amber. But as my eyes adjusted, I noticed a subtle wrongness. Something had been moved. Evan noticed it too. The nightstand. Yesterday, the small pine nightstand had been at a slight angle, like it always slid unevenly on the concrete floor. Now it sat straight, deliberately positioned. Too deliberate. I stepped closer. There, tucked under a sunscreen bottle that wasn't mine, lay a folded piece of paper. Evan exhaled sharply. He really did it. I reached for it carefully, unfolding it like a dangerous relic. At the top was a cheap imitation of the property management logo, blurry, stretched, the kind of forgery made by someone who thought no one would look too closely. Below it, notice of early access. Mandatory party inspection. Tenant presence recommended. Date today. My pulse pounded. "It's awful," Evan said. "But at least it proves." "No," I whispered. "Something's off." Because the corners were curled, ever so slightly, as if someone had held it in their hands for longer than a moment. And then I saw it. A faint smudge of sand on the bottom edge. Sand that wasn't from this downstairs room. This floor stayed cold and clean because no one bothered to bring beach gear down here. Our towels were all upstairs. Our shoes too. "Evan," I said slowly. "He didn't bring this down last night." "What do you mean?" I angled the paper in the light. "There's sand on it. He must have had it upstairs earlier. Maybe even on the deck. He waited until morning to plant it." Evan cursed under his breath. "He wanted you to wake up, find the notice, panic, and leave before breakfast. And when I didn't find it," I said, "he sent the text." Evan shook his head. "This is beyond anything I ever expected from him." I set the notice on the bed. "There has to be more." He frowned. "More?" "Yes. Something about the scuff marks on the dehumidifier last night bothered me. And the trash basket was out of place. He didn't come down here just once." Evan knelt beside the small wicker basket, examining it. "He moved it for a reason." I scanned the room, eyes darting over the few objects that existed in this sparse space. Luggage, cooler, 2 plastic chairs, the dresser, the dehumidifier. Nothing seemed out of place, but the feeling remained that there was something here just beneath the surface. Then I noticed the dresser. 3 drawers. Cheap laminate. One handle fractured. But the bottom drawer, the one we hadn't touched since arriving, was barely open. A sliver. A whisper of a gap. I crouched down, heart hammering. "Evan." He joined me, and together we pulled the drawer open. Inside were 2 beach towels. Ours. Rolled tightly. But tucked between them, hidden intentionally, was a small cardboard envelope. Evan reached for it. "What is that?" I recognized it instantly. A property ID packet. Given to us at the start of our lease. We kept it in the storage bench at home. My breath caught. "He brought this here?" Evan opened it, revealing the laminated property ID card, the map of the duplex complex, and a slip of paper that had been folded so sharply it looked like it had been pressed under something heavy. "What's this?" he murmured. I unfolded it. My stomach dropped. It was a printed screen capture. A photograph. A time-stamped image of our front door at home, taken from our smart doorbell camera. The date? Yesterday. The time 5:16 p.m. Just 30 minutes before we left for the trip. The angle revealed Mark's unmistakable figure, leaning over typing something into the keypad. "Oh my God," I whispered. He took a screenshot of himself entering our house. "But why bring the screenshot here?" Evan asked. And then it clicked. And then it clicked. "He wanted to stage a narrative," I said. "If we found this image, the forged notice, the property packet, he was going to claim the landlord needed information, and he was the only one handling things responsibly. He was building a false trail." Evan looked sick. "He planned to make us think our home was unsafe, and that we'd been careless. He was going to blame us for the false move-out request," I added. "Make it look like we triggered it." Evan's voice was hollow. "He was setting you up as the reason everything went wrong." I swallowed hard. "Yes, but something else gnawed at me. Why leave the time-stamped image where we'd find it?" He's sloppy, I thought. But Mark wasn't this sloppy. He was reckless, petty, controlling, but not stupid. Unless he panicked, I said. When I confronted him about the text at breakfast, he didn't have time to remove what he'd hidden. Evan stared at the doorbell screenshot. He didn't get to finish the setup. "No," I agreed. "We interrupted the plan." Evan folded the paper again, slower this time, as if each crease confirmed something heavy. "We need to show this to everyone." "Yes," I said. "But not yet." He looked at me. "Why not?" "Because right now, they think he's just being manipulative and invasive. They don't know he planned an entire narrative to shift blame. If we bring all of this at once, he'll deny, spin, confuse. And if we wait, we'll catch him reacting," I said. "When he doesn't know what we found, that reaction will tell the truth louder than anything we say." Evan nodded slowly. "So what do we do?" I lifted the cardboard envelope. "We take this upstairs." But before we left the room, I paused. The dehumidifier light blinked again. Steady, rhythmic. And behind it, wedged between the machine and the wall, something metallic glinted faintly. A final clue. I reached behind it and pulled out a small object. Not dangerous. Not dramatic. Just a simple fridge magnet, the kind you buy at gas stations. Ours. From a road trip last year. I flipped it over. On the back, in tiny handwriting, someone had written, "Keep your house in order." Initialed. A message. A warning. A taunt. Left days, maybe weeks, before we ever arrived at the beach. Evan stared at it in disbelief. "He's been planning this longer than we thought." "Yes," I said. "But now we know." I slipped the magnet into my pocket. As we climbed the stairs, voices echoed faintly from the kitchen. Awkward small talk, strained civility. They had no idea what was coming. Neither did Mark. The upstairs deck was already crowded when Evan and I returned with the cardboard envelope tucked discreetly under my arm. Midday sun poured across the planks, warming them enough to make them smell faintly of heated salt and resin. Lydia sat stiffly in a lounge chair, hands wrapped around a sweating glass of sweet tea. Mara and Colin leaned against the railing, trading uneasy glances. Darla hovered near the sliding door, pale and wrung out. And Mark stood alone at the far end of the deck, staring toward the ocean like he expected an escape route to rise from the waves. Evan stepped forward. "We need to talk." Mark didn't turn around. "I said everything already." "No," I said softly. "You didn't." His shoulders tightened. When he finally looked back at us, his eyes flicked immediately to the envelope in my hands. For a fraction of a second, something dark crossed his face, fear or fury I couldn't tell. But it was clear he knew what it contained. Darla noticed. "Mark, what's that look?" "It's nothing," he muttered. "They're just trying to drag this out." "We're trying to understand," Evan said. "That's all." Mark rolled his eyes and crossed his arms. "I apologized." "Can't you drop it?" "You didn't apologize," Mara said. "You confessed to some things, then blamed her for everything else. He snapped toward her. Stay out of it. Mara lifted a brow. No. Evan breathed out, controlled but tense. Mark, we found more in the downstairs room. Mark froze. I told you, he said, voice too high, too hurried. I only put the notice there. That's not true, I said. You left more than that. His jaw clenched, a twitch so sharp it might have cracked something inside him. What else did he do? Lydia asked. Before I answered, Mark cut in. Nothing. They're exaggerating. Misinterpreting things. You all know how she gets. How she gets. Lydia repeated, stunned. Makes drama out of nothing, he said. This is exactly what I was trying to avoid. Evan stepped between us. You made this. Every part of it. Mark's eyes narrowed. You're choosing her over me. She's my wife, Evan said, unwavering. And you've spent the past week trying to humiliate her, manipulate us, and sabotage our home. Mark scoffed. Oh, please. Enough. Lydia stood, voice shaking. Just tell the truth. He didn't. But someone else grabbed the thread. Darla spoke quietly, staring at Mark like she was seeing a stranger. What did you put in their room, Mark? All of it. No omissions. Mark inhaled sharply. I didn't. Look, some things fell out of the cooler when I dropped it off at their place. You never dropped off a cooler, Evan said. There's nothing to fall out of. Mark's mouth opened, closed, opened again. And then, a pivot. A desperate, sloppy pivot. You don't even know what's in that drawer, he said loudly, pointing toward the house, trying to get ahead of us. Probably your own stuff you forgot about. Probably something she. Oi, Colin cut in, tone flat. Bad idea. Do not start pointing fingers, Mara added. You're failing at this. Mark ignored them. They're trying to set me up. They planted something to frame me. The accusation was so backward, so wild that everyone stared at him. Even the gulls seemed to pause their squawking. He pushed on, flailing. You want another example? Fine. I bet there's some photograph or paperwork or some screenshot in that drawer you're about to pin on me. The deck went silent. He realized what he'd just said half a second too late. Because we had not said one word. Not one. About the screenshot. The word hung in the air, terrible and bright. Darla's face drained. Mark, a screenshot? Mark paled. I mean, I don't. You told on yourself, Mara whispered, almost impressed. You straight up told on yourself. Evan stepped closer, voice razor calm. Screenshot of what, Mark? Mark shook his head. I didn't, they put it there. I bet she even forged the timestamp. Forged you entering our house? I said. I didn't. He caught himself, teeth snapping shut. But the panic was rising in him like a tide. You accessed their house, Lydia said slowly, each word heavier than the last. Then you photographed it. And then you brought that here. Mark's breath hitched. No, I didn't use the doorbell. We never said it was the doorbell, I said quietly. He stopped breathing. Darla whispered. What did you do? He looked around wildly. At the dunes, the railing, the clouds, anywhere but at us. And then the spiral began. It wasn't supposed to go this far, he blurted. I just wanted the landlord to pick me. You know how expensive the market is. I'm drowning, Darla. We're drowning. And you kept saying their place was nicer. I said it because I liked the light. Darla cried. Not because I wanted you to evict your own brother. I wasn't evicting anyone, he shouted, voice cracking. I needed leverage. By staging a move-out crisis? Evan said, disbelief shaking his words. Mark pointed at me, desperate. She made you harder to handle. You used to listen to me. You used to take my advice. Now you question everything. That's called growth, Evan snapped. Not rebellion. And you resent her for it, Lydia said sadly. You're punishing her for making your brother stronger. Mark's face twisted. She made him difficult. No, I said. I helped him set boundaries. You don't like boundaries. Because boundaries break families, he shouted. No, Evan said firmly. Manipulation breaks families. And that was when the wind changed. A sudden gust from the ocean swept across the deck, lifting the cardboard envelope from beneath my arm. I lunged to catch it, but the papers inside slid out, two of them skittering across the planks like startled crabs. One landed near Mara's foot. The other, the doorbell screenshot, landed directly at Mark's. He stared at it. His chest rose once sharply, then fell. He didn't pick it up. Mara did. She studied it, eyebrows rising slow and stunned. Well, this is not subtle. Colin took it next. Timestamp. Clear as day. Darla covered her mouth. You entered their house 30 minutes before we left for the trip? Mark didn't answer. His silence was an answer. Lydia stepped forward, voice low, trembling with disappointment. You violated their home. You lied. You forged a notice. You manipulated the landlord. You tried to force her out. You tried to steal their lease. And you did it all behind smiles and excuses. Mark finally snapped. I had no choice, he roared, eyes wild. I needed a way in. I needed the landlord to think they were irresponsible. And why, Evan said coldly, would we ever be irresponsible? Because she is. Mark shouted, pointing at me with a shaking finger. She's the reason you're different. Evan stepped closer until they were almost nose to nose. If different means not being under your thumb, then thank God I changed. Mark shoved him, hard enough to rock him back a foot. Everyone gasped. Evan steadied himself, but his eyes went flint hard. That's it, he said. You're done. Mark's chest heaved. Sweat glimmered at his temples. His hands trembled. And for the first time he looked less like a man in control, and more like a man who just realized control had never been his to begin with. By the time the sun dipped below the dunes, the entire household felt like it was holding its breath. Dinner was a silent choreography of avoidance, cutlery scraping, chairs shifting, no one daring to spark conversation. Even the cousins, usually loud and unfiltered, barely whispered. Mark ate alone at the far end of the table. Darla sat beside Lydia, red-eyed but composed. Evan stayed close to me, his hand brushing mine every few minutes, as if confirming we were still tethered to the same reality. When plates were cleared, Lydia announced quietly, no one leaves the house tonight. We finish this. Mark barked a bitter laugh, but no one dignified it with a reply. The air conditioning kicked on, humming through the ductwork as we gathered in the living room. The distant roar of waves filtered through the windows, a steady reminder that no matter the storm inside this house, the ocean outside would erase our footprints by morning. Evan and I shared a glance. It was time. I set the cardboard envelope on the coffee table. The screenshot, the notice, the property packet, they all lay inside. But before we could begin, a ringtone shattered the hush. Mark's phone. He jolted, startled, then suspiciously panicked. Caller ID lit up. Henderson Property Management. The landlord. Every head turned. Mark's throat bobbed. It's probably about. He didn't finish. Evan said calmly, put it on speaker. Mark hesitated. Too long. Finally, Darla reached over and hit the speaker button. A crisp voice filled the room. Hello. This is Mr. Henderson returning a call placed earlier regarding a change in occupancy request. Mark shot upright, eyes wide. I didn't call. I never. There must be a mistake. Actually, Henderson continued, unbothered by the interruption, I'm calling because your brother also reached out this afternoon. He asked about the duplicate move-out inquiry, and whether it was legitimate. All eyes swung to Evan. He'd called quietly from upstairs, wanting clarity before the final confrontation. Henderson went on, I told him the same thing I'm telling you now. We flagged the inquiry because the timestamp and signature seemed unusual. Unusual how? Evan asked, stepping closer to the phone. Henderson replied, it was submitted using a photo of the lease signature page. The image metadata shows it was taken yesterday, specifically, 5:16 p.m. Mark flinched like he'd been struck. Metadata also shows the device model and OS version. It didn't come from your tenant's devices. Silence. Then Henderson's tone sharpened. Actually, it came from a phone registered under your account, Mr. Whitford. Mark swallowed hard. That's impossible, someone must have. But the landlord cut him off. I also received a voicemail from a neighbor of yours this morning. She reported seeing someone enter your brother's unit yesterday evening, using the keypad. My breath caught. Neighbor. Evan asked. Who? A new voice entered the call. Familiar one. Older, warm, slightly shaky but unmistakable. Hello? This is Mrs. Greeley from number 12. I saw Mark go inside yesterday while you two were loading your car. Of all the possible witnesses, the retired librarian next door who noticed everything, Mark looked like he'd been dropped from a height. Mrs. Greeley continued, oblivious to the tremors her words caused. I waved at him, but he didn't see me. He seemed in a right hurry to. Left about 2 minutes later. She paused. Oh, and he dropped something on the porch but picked it up fast. Hope nothing important broke. The brass key. Evan stared at his brother. You told us you hadn't been near our place. That you hadn't used the code. Mark's breath came shallow. She's mistaken. It was someone else. But Mrs. Greeley spoke again. It was you, dear. I've known you since you were in grade school. You always hunch your shoulders when you're nervous. I couldn't mistake you for anyone. If the room had been cold before, it was Arctic now. Henderson resumed, voice collected. Given the unauthorized access, the falsified request, and the breach of tenant privacy, I will need a written statement from both of you, Evan and your wife. He paused deliberately. And Mr. Whitford, he added, you and I will need to discuss your lease renewal separately. Mark's face drained. Sir, I can explain. One moment, Henderson said. Mrs. Greeley, thank you. That clarifies more than I expected. Oh, you're welcome, she said brightly. Happy to help. The call clicked, Mrs. Greeley gone. Henderson continued. I don't condone manipulation of tenancy paperwork. We take this seriously. Mark tried again, voice trembling. Sir, please, my brother is making this worse. Your brother didn't steal access codes, Mr. Whitford. The silence that followed was a verdict. Henderson ended with, I'll call Monday to finalize what steps must be taken. The line went dead. No one spoke for a long moment. Then Lydia inhaled shakily. Mark, look at me. He didn't. Mark, she repeated. He lifted his head, eyes red, jaw trembling, not with remorse but with rage. You people are unbelievable, he spat. You're destroying my life over one mistake. One. Evan said. You spent weeks planning to sabotage us. Mark whipped toward me. You're the reason for all this. You turned him against me. I held his gaze. No. You turned him away by treating him like something you owned. You ruined everything, he shouted. No, Lydia said softly. You ruined trust. Not them. Mark stumbled back, hands shaking. You all think you're perfect. But I only did what any family member would do if they were drowning. No, Darla whispered. No, Mark. Family doesn't drown each other to stay afloat. Her voice cracked. And you nearly drowned me too. Mark froze. She stepped forward slowly, tears spilling. Do you know how terrified I've been? Watching you spin stories, twist facts, sneak into their home? I kept telling myself you were stressed, overwhelmed, protecting us. But you weren't. You were obsessed. He tried to reach for her. She stepped back. Hard. Don't, she said. He collapsed into the deck chair like something inside him had snapped. The cousins quietly stepped aside. Lydia's eyes filled with a grief deeper than anger. Grief for a son who had chosen control over love. Evan wrapped his arm around my shoulders. We're done here. But I wasn't done. Not yet. I pulled the fridge magnet from my pocket, the one he'd left with the note. Keep your house in order. I placed it on the table beside him. He stared at it with horror. You left this months ago, I said. A warning. A message. His lip twitched. You weren't supposed to find it. I straightened. We found everything. He lowered his head into his hands. And for the first time since the trip began, Mark had no lies left to lean on. No excuses. No escape routes. Only consequences. Morning at the Outer Banks is usually a gift, soft gold light rising over the dunes, salt lifting into the air, the kind of quiet that settles into your lungs like peace. But not today. Today the house woke slowly, like a creature with a wound it didn't know how to protect. No one spoke above a whisper. No one clattered pans. Even the seagulls circling overhead seemed to caw with unusual restraint. Checkout was at 10 a.m. By 6:45, most of us were already packing. Evan zipped the last of our suitcase and exhaled. Ready. I looked around the small downstairs room, the thin mattresses, the dehumidifier's steady hum, the nightstand that had become evidence, the drawer that had revealed the screenshot. Evidence. Proof. Truth. Yes, I said. Ready. When we climbed the stairs, the scent of coffee hit us, but not warmly. It carried the tension of hands that trembled as they poured. Lydia stood at the counter, staring into her mug as if the liquid held a map out of the chaos. Mara and Colin were by the front door, pretending to discuss beach shells, really waiting for the inevitable conflict. Darla sat at the table, hands clasped, wedding band twisting back and forth. Only one person was missing. Mark. Evan whispered. Probably hiding. But he wasn't. When we stepped outside onto the upper deck to load our bags into the car, we found him sitting in a deck chair, arms folded tightly, face drawn in gray. His phone rested on the balcony rail beside him. Since last night's call, he hadn't touched it. He looked smaller this morning. Stripped. Cornered by his own choices. He didn't speak when we approached. Didn't meet our eyes. Evan said quietly, "We're heading out." Silence. I stepped closer. We didn't come to fight. We just came to leave. Mark's jaw flexed once. Good. Darla appeared in the doorway behind us, voice strained. Mark, please. He didn't acknowledge her. Instead, he stared straight ahead at the horizon, like the ocean might swallow the mess he'd left behind. Lydia joined us quietly, her presence shifting the air. She carried a small folder in her hands, the kind property managers leave in rental homes for checkout instructions. Matthew, she said gently. Everyone paused. No one called him Matthew anymore. Not since he was young. Her using it now was a soft blow. A reminder of the son she loved but could no longer protect from himself. He didn't turn. Don't. Mark, she tried again. You must hear this. He finally looked at her. Eyes glassy, resentment tangled with shame. I got an email at 4:12 a.m. from Mr. Henderson, she said. He followed up after last night's call. Evan raised an eyebrow. Already? Yes, she said. He was concerned. She hesitated, then opened the folder. Inside was a printed email. And my breath caught when I saw the subject line. Unauthorized access, tenant rights violation. Next steps in lease impact. Lydia continued softly. He reviewed the metadata from the submission. He confirmed everything you denied. Mark flinched. And he included something else, she added. She slipped one more sheet from the folder. A clean, crisp document stamped with the property management logo. A notice. Not forged. Not smudged. Not faked. Official. Evan leaned in to read it, eyes widening. Is that? He asked. Yes, Lydia said. It's a notice regarding your lease, Mark. Mark finally snatched the paper from her hands. He scanned it, eyes darting, breath heavy. When he reached the bottom, he crumpled it in his fist. They can't do this, he yelled, voice cracking. Darla whispered. What does it say? He didn't answer. So Lydia did. It states, she read carefully, that due to unauthorized entry into another tenant's property, falsified paperwork submitted to the management portal, and harassment intended to manipulate tenancy priority, the company is choosing not to renew Mark's lease. Darla's hand flew to her mouth. Mara exhaled softly. There it is. Colin murmured. Karma clocked in early today. Mark shot to his feet. They can't evict me for one mistake. This is insane. It wasn't one mistake, I said gently. It was weeks of them. And last night wasn't the first time someone reported suspicious behavior. Mark stared at me. Reported. Mrs. Greeley saw you, I said. And apparently she wasn't the only neighbor. Evan nodded. Henderson CC'd me. Several tenants saw you entering our place before. They didn't say anything at the time, but after his investigation started, they came forward. Mark swayed like the ground beneath him shifted. Darla's voice came out small. Mark, why? He didn't answer because there was no answer that would save him now. The consequences had finally arrived. And then a strange thing happened. He began to laugh. Not loudly. Not maniacally. Just a low, humorless, defeated sound. You all think this fixes anything, he said. But where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do? I stepped forward carefully. We don't want you homeless or ruined, I said softly. We never wanted that. He scoffed. You think I believe that? It's the truth, I said. But consequences aren't cruelty. They're clarity. Evan added quietly. This is a wake-up call, Mark. Not a punishment we created. A result you earned. For a long moment Mark just stared at him. And something in his expression broke. Not a clean break. Not healing. Something jagged. A realization cracking through the fog of resentment. He lowered himself back into the deck chair, hands limp at his sides. Darla moved toward him tentatively. We'll figure it out, if you're honest with me. From now on. He didn't look at her, but he didn't recoil either. Small progress. Barely perceptible. But something. Lydia exhaled a shaky breath. We should finish packing. One by one, everyone drifted inside, leaving Mark on the deck, shrinking into himself beneath the brightening sky. We loaded the car in silence, sand crunching under our shoes. As Evan closed the trunk, he reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. The brass key. He walked to the rental's wooden railing, held the key for a moment between his fingers. Its weight no longer threatening but symbolic, and then he handed it to Lydia. You should keep this, he told her. Remind him there are boundaries. She took it with a heavy nod. Darla approached us timidly. I'm sorry, she whispered, for everything I contributed to without realizing. You didn't know the full story, I said. Now you do. Evan squeezed her shoulder. Take care of yourself. And him if he lets you. But don't lose yourself to fix him. She nodded, tears forming. As Evan and I got into our car, Mark finally rose from the deck and walked toward us. He stopped a few feet away. His voice was hoarse. I can't undo it. No, Evan said. But you can stop making it worse. Mark swallowed hard. I'll stay away. For now. That's best, I replied. He nodded once. Then turned away, shoulders slumped, not defeated, but finally facing a truth he'd run from for years. As we pulled out of the gravel driveway, the rental house shrinking behind us, the ocean breeze carried a final whisper of the trip's turmoil. But inside our car, it felt lighter, calmer, cleaner. Evan glanced at me with a soft smile. Thank you. For not leaving quietly. I smiled back. We keep our house in order. This time the phrase wasn't a threat. It was a promise. A gentle, shared vow to build boundaries strong enough that no amount of manipulation could crack them again. And as the dunes receded from view, I realized something. Justice hadn't come through shouting, or revenge, or cruelty. It had come through truth. And truth had done its work.